about function notation and evaluating functions. So function notation is that f parentheses x, but we don't say it that way. It's not f times x, it's f of x. It's saying that this is going to be a function of an x value. Its value is going to depend on the x, the input that I have. So x is considered the input, and the answer, f of x, is a y value, and it's called the output. I'm sure you've seen it before, but let's take a look at an example. I have f of x is equal to 2x squared minus x plus 3. So we have function of x, and then this is what we call the rule part over here. So whatever I put in the parenthesis is what has to replace x in that formula or rule. So f of 0 means you have 2 times 0 squared minus 0 plus 3. We simplify and get a 3. The thing I put in is the x value, that's the input, and I put that for my x. The answer I get out, the output, is my y value. So this is telling me for this particular function, I would have the ordered pair 0, 3 on a graph, right? The next one is f of -7. Same thing. I put this one in here because I wanted to remind you guys that when you have a negative number, anything you're putting in, you should put in parentheses. And when you have a negative number and you square it, it always becomes positive. Okay, so a negative number, it should be positive. So be careful if you're using calculators here that you use the correct notation. So the final answer on this one, when you work it all out, is 108. So once again, if I put in a number, that's going to be my x. The answer I get out is the output is going to be my y. So the ordered pair here would be -7, 108. Now these next two, I'm not going to come up with an ordered pair necessarily, but I will use the same process. What's in the parentheses is my input, and what I get out is going to be my output. In this case, I'm not going to get a numeric answer because I have 2 times the 5a squared minus 5a plus 3. Well, this is 25a squared, multiplying it by itself, and then doubling, so there's the 50a squared. And then the rest, we can't, let me just write it down because we can't combine. There are no like terms, and that's as good as that answer is going to get. Now this last one is a little more tricky. You've got a minus 4 here, and again, that has to replace both of those x's in the formula. So when I pull this up here, and I'm just going to take that off, we see that we have 2 times that quantity, a minus 4 squared, minus the quantity, use those parentheses, a minus 4 plus 3. So I FOIL this out. I have a little note here on the side that reminds you that when you have something squared, some quantity squared, it means you're multiplying it by itself and you're going to have to FOIL. So that's how we got this trinomial right here. Then the last thing you would do there is distribute the 2. Okay, on the middle term, you got to be careful that there's a minus, so you distribute very carefully, and then we combine all of our like terms and we get a trinomial answer here. Sometimes they give us a couple different functions and say, hey, do something with both of these in the same problem. So here I have a linear function, this f of x equals 3x minus 7, and g of x is a quadratic or x squared function, and they say evaluate f of 5 minus g of -2. Well, I'm going to make sure I put brackets in here. First of all, that helps me visually separate the two, but it also helps me avoid sign errors in my problems. So the f of 5 goes in this first bracket. That means I'm going to put the 5 into the f formula. Then I have minus and whatever g of -2 is, so we take the -2 and put it in the second formula. We very carefully do our order of operations here and then combine our terms and get 20. Now, if you wanted to, you could have done this directly on the calculator and put it in just like you have it up here at the top, parentheses instead of the brackets, but you would get the same answer if you don't want to do all the in-between steps. All right, let's try one more that's similar to this. I have f of x equals 3x minus x squared, and I want to evaluate f of 4. Well, just plug it in, no big deal. But then the next question here I have is, what about if f of x is equal to -10? So this time it's not evaluate, it's solve. So they've given me the answer here, and I have to figure out what the input is. So they've told me what this answer is. So negative 10 is equal to 3x minus x squared. Well, that's a quadratic, an x squared equation. So hopefully we remember that means I'm going to put all the terms on one side and make it equal to 0 and try to factor if we can. I don't like to factor when I have negative x squared, so I moved everything to the left. I added the x squared, subtracted the 3x, kept everything in order, and then I factored it. So x and x gives me the x squared. The positive 2 and the negative 5 will multiply to give me that negative 10. Remember, you always check the outer and the inner and make sure that they add up to the middle. Minus 5x plus 2x, yes, it equals negative 3x. So we set those factors equal to 0, and then we solve those simple equations. So that gives you a little bit of idea on working with function notation. Let me know if you have any questions.